Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of From the Field, Voices of Football. Join us on our latest podcast episode as we sit down with Coach Aneez, the visionary behind 703 Warriors. Discover how they're shaping resilient leaders of character from diverse backgrounds. Learn about the challenges facing many youth today and how 703 Warriors is bridging the gap, ensuring no child is left behind. Thank you, Coach Aneez, for being here with us.
No, thank you so much for having me, Eduardo. I really appreciate it.
Uh, yeah. So my first question is, how'd you get into soccer?
Yeah, I mean, it's something, I picked up as a kid, and it was just another sport that I really, was passionate about. I ended up moving to football, but again, American football.
Oh, gotcha.
And
Okay.
a lot of the stuff that I leverage and pull from in terms of experience, it's I'm trying to figure out what would be the best shape for a kid, as I try to give back to the community. And a couple things came up when we thought about 703 Warriors. We're like, okay, well, there's kids that, they want to try multiple sports. That's one aspect. It's kind of hard if you just force a kid to pick a sport, right? That's kind of what the model is right now,
Mhm.
or you get left behind. And then you have these other kids, this whole other audience that's just completely getting left behind or excluded because they can't afford it. Their parents, last thing they're thinking about is driving my kid at 6:30 at night for 2 hours to someplace 15, 20 minutes away, right? Like I got other things going on. I'm working parent, I'm single mom, whatever it is. So that's kind of what we're trying to service with this program is giving an outlet to these kids that are normally excluded that they just need a chance to be to shine.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'll go back to a little bit from what you started first. Okay, you say you went to football, and then how'd you get back into soccer? Because I know you say you left.
Oh yeah. I mean, me personally, yeah, I left the soccer scene, but then I have kids now too, and I coach all the sports, man. And soccer is just something that I notice it's reaching a good level of popularity. My oldest likes playing too, so I was like, you know what? I'm in a position where I can just go put my kid into the travel program and pay $3,000 and call it. But me personally, I always wanted to give back. So I was like, you know what? Let me try this little program. My son's gonna be doing it anyways. Why not just do that? I have the time, I have the resources to support. So really, I was thinking, man, a lot of these things, they don't work when people that really need it do it. It takes a person that doesn't really need the program to upstart and start this thing, right? So that's kind of the approach I've taken is let me try it. Worst case, if it doesn't work out, I'll just go stand in line with everyone else. I'll pay the $3,000. I'll put my son on the team and I'll call it, like that's it. But this is just something that I was like, man, I want to give back. And it kind of aligned. So that's what brought me back to soccer, to be honest, was just the whole timing thing.
Okay, right. Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. So I guess my question is, what inspired you to for the founding of this club, and what sets it apart from others in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, this one is completely free. I mean, I haven't heard of it
Wow.
doing a completely free soccer at a competitive level. So a lot of people, when I first tell them it's free, they're like, "Oh, it's accessible. Why don't they go do rec?" I'm like, "Well, hold on." But these kids, if you just gave them a chance, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, something very accessible for free, they're gonna blow your mind. Against these kids that are training 5, 6 days a week, are they really good or they just have money, right? Is my assumption for a lot of this. I mean, there are kids that are also really good, but it's like, how do you level or give an opportunity at least for this other kid to be seen if they just had 2 days, 3 days of structured practice and you just gave them a chance? So that's kind of how I started this. And coming back to my experience, I used to play in what's called the Mexican League in San Diego. And I know a lot of kids that I grew up with, and I'm like, man, if that guy just had like a chance, like he would be better than all these other kids. And then they continue to be set back as they get older and older. They keep getting lower and lower. There's other barriers that are introduced. And that was also a part of the passion that drove me of trying to find these kids that if you just gave them an opportunity, they could shine. And then by age 11, if that's what their passion is, I gave them a chance to be seen by these bigger clubs that charge 3,000, whatever. And now those clubs will be happy because this person is no longer a risk. They've seen them perform at the tournament. Hey, we got you. Like, hey, Eduardo, we got you, buddy. Like, come play for us. Don't worry about the money. We'll figure out. We'll get you practices and everything. So that's what really drove me to start this thing. And when you talk about the other differentiators, we're bringing this holistic life skills thing into it too. So a lot of background that I have from the military, from just being on high level teams. I played Division I college football over at West Point for Army. like bringing all these different skills that I've gathered over time, I've noticed these kids are missing mentorship. They're missing online safety. They're missing substance awareness training. So, right. So using soccer also to bring the kids out and give them this other programming. It's something that I'm not seeing other clubs doing. They're just focused on soccer and how do we continue to evolve the brand so we can make money. Mine is coming from a different approach of how do we do partnerships with the community, how we give these kids a chance. And then when we do those two things, my strategy is the money will come. The money has to come from somewhere, but my whole strategy is if I do these things with the community, people are going to see it and they're going to say, wow, like we love what you're doing. We love, how do we support? So that's kind of the strategy I've been taking so far in this. We've been running this since January, like officially as a nonprofit 501c3. And we have a pilot team right now. And I could dive into wherever you think makes sense, Eduardo. But that's where we think we're different, is just being completely accessible, not saying we're accessible. And then if someone comes to us and says, hey, can you take this kid and cover him? Oh, just go to rec.
Right. Okay, so I guess the big word here that you used was free, right? Because soccer is so expensive in this country. How do you manage to keep it free for the players?
Yeah, of course. So what we do is there are some families that can afford it. And what we do is normally when we get something, so I'll give an example, jerseys or
Hmm.
uniforms, we get those sponsored. I'll tell families, if you can, the recommended donation is $20, but it's not going to go against your kids' playing time. It's not going to be held against the family if they can't afford it, or if you don't feel like paying. We kind of approach it from that angle. So we are able to raise money and cover like other things just by people just saying, you know what, here's $30, here's $50, like over and over for these different expenses. I'll say, hey, we have a tournament coming up. Recommended donations $50. But again, if you can't pay it, don't worry. The nonprofit is fundraising. And that's how we basically get support, is from the community partners we work with. We get sponsors to cover the jerseys, to cover socks. We got someone to donate cleats to one of the players that just couldn't afford cleats. So I mean, it's doing these partnerships and being very resourceful with what we're doing. It keeps the cost very low, and we're all volunteer driven. So we don't have, what I would like to evolve to is to have some paid positions, particularly coaches. But right now, because we're just starting, we're keeping everything very cheap, and that's how we keep it free, is because we eliminate a lot of those costs, like field reservations. We just kind of ad hoc find resources that are available. We message out on WhatsApp to all the teammates. Hey, parents, we're going to be over here for today's practice. Everyone brings the kids there, or we have kids that live in the same apartment buildings. One parent drops off, other parent picks up. So we're making more of like a community thing versus, like a business, I guess is probably the best way to describe it.
Right, right. Okay. So let me get so everybody's kind of involved, not just you, but the parents as well, getting the whole community as well, right? Is that kind of
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. I mean, so when I flag the two programs we run, Eduardo, we have the competitive soccer program, and then we have the youth development program. The youth development program, it's a lot easier for us to fundraise for because people get behind it and they say, hey, I want to put money towards this because you're teaching, like Target as an example. Target is putting money towards supporting this upcoming event that we have for the youth development side. They're putting money towards it and they're bringing out volunteers. So this money that we're getting from this side of the house also helps fund these other small things that we're doing on the soccer side. And we're evolving as we speak. So if you talk to me, Eduardo, in like a year from now, some of this may change, but the whole goal is still the same. We're trying to keep it completely accessible.
Wow. Okay. That's a very, very good I don't know how to say it because I've never heard it done before. Like I said, soccer's so expensive in this country.
Yeah.
So for you to do it, it's hands off to you,
Yeah, we're
um,
still trying, man. It's I see it as we take baby steps
right, right.
and with the right intentions, the money's gonna come, I think is kind of our strategy. We do the right things, we partner with the other right nonprofits. Like we're partnered with Travis Manion Foundation and they're partnered with Under Armour, Johnson and Johnson. Right? We do these things, we start getting introduced to other folks. It's a matter of time before someone says, man, we see the impact you guys are doing. We want to support that. And we have this upcoming event with the Washington Spirit, the women's team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So again, right, these little small partnerships, baby steps, right? They want to work with the community. That's another outlet that we can have, where they can support us in some fashion. And I think that's the way we're taking this. But again, man, it's so baby steps at this time. So I wouldn't even say we've solved it. We have just solved it for the pilot that we're trying now.
Gotcha. Okay. So it kind of seems like it's all community based, right? Everybody's part of a community. Everybody's kind of help you out. That's very good. So I think you mentioned it, right? But how do you do for the field? Because the field's one of the main portions that it's most expensive. How do you keep that low where it's not expensive?
Yeah, the fields, man, in general, I'm just a very resourceful person. I find places and I know we're pretty ingenious and like, okay, people don't normally want to practice Friday night, as an example.
Okay.
No one wants to be on the field Friday night.
Hmm.
I know it's going to be available. So as long as the families are flexible with, hey, 6:30 on Friday night, is that okay? Okay, it's free, because no one's on the field. So that's kind of how we've been rolling it. I'm also looking at investing in some of those portable lights. So
Oh, right. Okay.
a lot of the fields around us, they don't have lights. So after a certain time, especially in the winter slash, the fall,
Yeah.
after
Yep.
6:30, man, no one is on the field. It's a big waste. You have some lights, you're on the field for free. It's a one-time cost. As opposed to around here, you have to pay anywhere from 80 to $100 an hour for a field, right? So I mean that adds up very quickly. So we're trying to be innovative with how we can get the kids into these spaces. And it's not scalable the way we are currently doing it, but it's working, right? So we're taking those baby steps. We're trying to figure out what makes the most sense. And I'm trying to partner with the county here where they can give us basically, hey, you know what? We see what you guys are doing. We can carve out a space for you, like no, we're not going to charge you. So that's kind of where I'm trying to move with this. But in the end, if we do have to pay, I'm hoping we've given or shown such an impact that we can raise money to cover those costs in the future.
Wow. Okay. That's very, very cool. It's kind of the same way here where how do you mention many of the fields here don't have lights. So in the winter, you have to go inside.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you have like a big club, then you can, right? But does it snow there? Does it get cold in the winter? And how would you manage that as well?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny, man. In this past winter, we did something that again is not scalable, but I also coach other sports. So I coach basketball and basketball is indoors.
Right.
And
Okay.
I worked with the lady. I built up relationships because I volunteer a lot for other things. And I worked with our partner here, and she's like, "Hey, this slot after your practice, no one comes." So what I started doing is I started telling the families, "Hey, if you want to come, we can practice after basketball." I even told some of the families, if your kid wants to try basketball, come practice with us. I don't care. You can't come to the game because I don't want to get sued, but feel free if you want to come to basketball and then stay for soccer. So it's very community, not scalable. What we also did was basketball courts outdoors. A lot of them do have lights around us for whatever reason, that and tennis courts. And who's not using anything when it's snowing or if it's
Hmm.
cold outside? Basketball and tennis courts are a big waste. One time, me and two of the parents, we shoveled the basketball court
Wow. Okay.
and we made it. It was pretty cool because, man, we made it to where it was like a wall. It was like an indoor court, and the kids love it. They had jackets, beanies, like they don't care, man. Like we were freezing, but the
Yep.
kids they loved it. And I have portable goals that you can set up pretty quick.
Hmm.
And I set them up at the basketball hoops, and I mean, it was like an indoor soccer field. So it's just we're trying to do things that are very resourceful. It's not going to make sense as we grow, but I'm hoping the money and the impact that we show will start like, coming together, and then we can start looking more at official things or even the partnerships that we're working. I'm hoping those come through and we can start saying, you know what? Can we just get an hour slot for these two teams that practice at this basketball court when it's snowing in the winter, as an example?
Right. Right. That's very interesting. And the kids do love, as long as they're out there playing. I know
Yeah,
my
yeah.
team, even if it's raining, they want to be practicing. Like, no, you can't practice. It's raining. But yeah, as long as they're having fun, they'll be out there running around. That's very cool though. Even with the lights, the portable lights, that's a smart idea. I've never even thought about that myself.
Yeah, man, they're not that expensive. I mean, they're expensive, but you do the numbers, man. You see, there's a crossover. Like you'll pay these things, you'll pay off your lights. I've run the numbers in about a month if you're practicing like 3 days a week. And
Mhm.
imagine you have multiple teams that can use these lights. I mean, it's a matter of time, I think, before someone comes and just tells you to get off the field, though. So that's a whole nother bridge. Like we've been facing problems or challenges. When we get to them, then we've been solving it. I haven't really been thinking too far out of, hey, if this thing happens, what are we going to do? Because again, we're just trying to inch towards the right answer
Okay.
and try to do it in a way that's sustainable that we can continue to do in the future to like impact more kids.
Right, gotcha. Okay. Now that you mentioned it, you're not looking too far ahead. My question is, what's your vision or vision and mission? You know,
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Eduardo. Yeah, the vision is really to be a feeder team. So I didn't mention the age range that I'm targeting. I'm targeting kids 8 to 11 because I think
okay.
if they can afford it, then they want to try piano, they want to try lacrosse, they want to try flag football. And I don't care. Go try all the sports, go do wrestling because I want an athlete on the field if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, now we're giving you a chance. And then by age 11, why the reason I pick age 11 is at that point, if you're serious about soccer, hopefully we've given you a chance to be seen. Now go to those other big clubs and do practice 5 days a week. You know, you're bought into soccer. That's your passion. If it's not your passion by age 11, now you say, hey, that was cool. I had fun. It was competitive. But you know what? I'm a lacrosse player. Like I'm going to go do lacrosse or I'm going to go do hockey, football, whatever it is. So that's why I picked that age range. So the vision, going back to your question, is really to become like a feeder program. And
Okay.
I have some local partnerships. I'm working with Arlington Travel Soccer here. You know, we're in Arlington and Virginia, and I'm trying to work partnerships with them to figure out what makes sense. It's not really the European model because I can't sell kids. Some places, you know, you're basically selling kids, which I'm not trying to sell kids, but what I'm trying to do is that could be another way to basically, hey, I feed it to this big club. They say, hey, we love what you're doing. When you have another kid like that, let us know, you know, to come to us first. Hey, oh, by the way, do you guys need soccer balls? Do you guys need field space? Do you need tournaments? Like, we'll pay for the tournaments. Like, so basically, I'm trying to figure out, can we help make this thing sustainable by getting these kids that are completely excluded, that aren't being seen at all from travel soccer, staging them, grooming them, and then being ready to hand over to these big clubs. And then those big clubs notice us and say, hey, we love what you're doing. Like, how can we help, man? Like, you need equipment, you need coaches. Like, how can we help you guys? Because you're giving us some top talent that we would have never even seen, you know?
Gotcha. Okay. So you're kind of doing like the dirty work at the beginning, and then once they're ready, the clubs have them, and then you guys get like soccer balls or something, from that's a smart idea. Like I said, I never thought about it myself, and then if it works, hats off to you.
Yeah, even jerseys, man, even anything, right? Like that's the thing I think could work because they're not just going to be like, "Hey, thanks for bringing Eduardo. He's a star kid.
Hmm.
He's $100,000." You know, like you won't be able to do that in the U.S. unfortunately, and I don't know if it's even, you know, it's kind of weird to do that anyways. But I think it could get to a big point where it's like, "Hey, we're building this new facility. We we want to build it for you guys." You know, there's indirect ways where these clubs I think could give back where it's not just like, hey, here's some money. It's like, hey, how do we get you guys uniforms? How do we get you guys, how do we pay for those 6 tournaments you're doing this year? Hey, we'll pay for the 6 tournaments. Don't worry about it. We want to see those kids perform. We'll be out there. We're going to send a recruit out there and we'll see what these kids got so we can bring them up to our academy team or whatever.
Got it. Yeah, yeah. Seems like it could work. I mean, that way, part of a academy where you're not kind of affiliated, but you're, yeah. So how do you
Well,
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
no, that was it, man. I was just gonna say, we'll see. You know, I don't want to be like jinx it or anything. We're just, again, it's the baby steps. Like that's the vision. And you go back to your mission thing,
Mhm.
Eduardo's like, I really think we're trying to really inspire the next generation. So even teaching them skills that they can take and apply on the field, but also off the field. You know, like say soccer is not in the cards for them, but now they're leaving with a mentorship figure. They're learning a lot of lessons that you know that you learn on the pitch, right?
Yep.
Or if you're playing football, whatever it is, like there's some skills in there that you learn that help you succeed at life if you're not going to continue with soccer. So we're trying to take that holistic approach when you talk about the mission. It's really inspiring and helping those or empowering those kids to be better people in the long run.
Right, right. But always, in my point of view, like we have a bigger impact than we think in that point person's players upbringing. More than just the player itself. There's a human side, and we have a big impact.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's the ripple effect. You know, a lot of people talk about it, right? And that's the other reason why I've kind of tried to scale this thing is, man, how can we help more kids that are, they're just being left behind. Like I meet a lot of kids, I'm out in the community, I meet a lot of parents. That's kind of how we shape this thing over time, is really talking with folks, figuring out like what makes sense, because
Okay.
it might make sense for me, but again, my customer is the parents, right? And the kids, their kids. Like, how do we best serve them? It might not exactly make sense for what I think it makes sense, but again, it's a nonprofit. The community owns a nonprofit. I'm just here trying to stand it up.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Yeah. That's a great plan that you're trying to do here, you know.
No, thanks so much.
How does I guess you kind of already answered this one, but I just want to, answer it again. What initiative does the club undertake to foster community and support the grassroots soccer? I know you mentioned it before, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really, those youth development events that we do 6 of them annually. And also, so on the soccer side, we do 6 to 7 tournaments. And then on the youth development side, we do 6 to 7 community events. And we also partner with other organizations if they come to us, like a local church, local mosque, some organization that's like, hey, we want to include soccer in our programming. We also go support those if they do like a big picnic for the community and stuff. So it's really finding ways to entrench ourselves in the community. It helps raise awareness, and that's how others are noticing us that, that bring dollars to the table. They're noticing and saying, hey, we like what you guys are doing. And it's really on that youth development side that people are really drawn to us. The soccer side, the community is like, hey man, that's such a great idea.
Hmm.
But no one's coming with the next sentence of, and I have my checkbook, like, how much can we help you with?
Right, right.
Development side, man, it makes sense, but people are more drawn to that because it's just using soccer to bring the kids out. And then we have like FBI Outreach did, they taught a course on online safety, because the kids, they can't all play soccer at the same time. So we break them up into groups and we have them kind of rotate through these stations. And it's a big community event. The kids come out, the families, and we have them break up in these age groups where they go through these different like activities. We had Travis
Okay.
Manning Foundation taught mentorship and resilience courses, and then we had who was the other group? Second Chance Arlington, another good community partner where they teach the difference between medication and candy, right? Like these are small things, but it goes a long way for these kids. And then obviously the most important thing for them is soccer. But it's really just finding ways to give them this other programming that they need without like saying, hey, just come out for online safety. Like no one's going to bring their kids out for that. But you
Right.
say, come out for soccer. Hey, I'm here for soccer, but for 10 minutes, you're going to need to talk to, Travis Mannion Foundation about how to be resilient and not give up and continue to push, in life or on the field.
Oh, okay, okay. So you have like different events while you're like while I practice? Is that how it?
It's so these youth development events are separate from the soccer team.
Hmm.
The youth development event is completely accessible. So even if you're not good at soccer, we welcome kids out. For the soccer side, it's more competitive. It is what it is. Like, I'll give you an example. At our last tournament, like some kids, they just didn't play as much as other kids because again, this is competitive. And then
Hmm.
others, because we don't want to turn kids away. We carry right now on our pilot team, we have like 16 kids. But
Okay.
obviously for a under 50, I mean, for a 2015 boys team, you can't bring a roster of 15 kids.
Yeah,
So
no.
what I do is we publish depth charts. We communicate with the family of like, hey, here's where your kid is at. We remove the politics from the whole equation. It's like, hey, this is where your kid is at. And for this next tournament, he can't travel for this one, but we love to have him come out for practices still, come out for other things. So that's how we're trying to figure it out is like, we don't want to turn people away and say, hey, you didn't make the team. But when you go to the youth development side, that one is everyone come out. If you're good or bad, come out. If you love soccer, come out. And it's way more accessible. So that's why I really like that program is it just makes us look more attractive to the community. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how that program runs. And it's very much advertised with folks like Affordable Homes and Communities. They're one of our
Okay.
main partners to make sure because we live in a small area that, to be honest, like the kids around here, they don't need this program, like where we live right now. But right on the outskirts of where we live, there's a lot of kids that need this program. So the reason I partner with these other organizations is to make sure we're reaching the right kids. Like I'm not going to discriminate and say, hey, the kids, my neighbors and stuff, like your kids can't come. But I want to make sure we advertise in the places where we get those kids that really need, are really excluded. And then you guys can come also. We just want to make sure we're advertising to the right audience.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So it's more for like the kids that are underprivileged, help them out a little bit more.
At least give them the opportunity to see it, like whether that's flyers at the office and affordable homes and communities, they send out information with the kids that live in those complexes and stuff. It's advertising there, and then, oh, by the way, just mentioning it and walking and passing with the families around here, because I really want to make sure that the kids that are normally excluded because they don't see this stuff, or their families just aren't part of these organizations, they don't see the bulletin board at school, whatever it is, because their kid takes the bus home, all these other things. Like, how do we make sure to give them a chance to also come out to these events?
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. 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 Because you're doing it as well as like the human development side, not just the player. That's a um great idea again. So like you mentioned before, right? You have like 15 players on your team, right? Let's say one player is not doing good in practice. Is he out for that tournament? And maybe next tournament he could come on, or until next season, or how does that work out?
Yeah, we publish a depth chart every 2 weeks. And yeah, no, it's not like, oh, you made the black team and you're on the black team for the whole season. We don't
Okay.
do it like that. How we do the teams and how I'm looking when we scale out to other teams is we do it by location. So I'll use Arlington as an example.
Hmm.
We split up Arlington into 3 sections. North Arlington, we call it Narl, Central Arlington, Carl, and South Arlington, Sarl. And what that does, instead of splitting teams up or kids up by talent, you're splitting them up by an accessible location for practice. So
Okay.
the Narrow team, everyone lives in that area and they practice in a central location. That way, because Arlington County is pretty big. So if you have a kid down in South Arlington or maybe in Falls Church nearby, they're going to be driving 15, 20 minutes. It's not accessible. But if you have all the kids from the same area, they can share carpool together. It's maybe a 5-10 minute walk from their apartment complex. That's kind of the way we're trying to move it. And then if a family, I've thought about this a little bit. If a family does come up from another team and say, hey, I want my son or my daughter to be on this team, we're not going to tell them no. We just split up the teams by location. But if you want to drive 20 minutes, you're accepting that's not going to be accessible for you as much as the other kids that all go to like the same 3 schools.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty interesting idea, because this way they don't even have to get a ride or like, oh, I'm late for because they could just walk there.
Yeah, we have one kid, he rides his bike with his brother. So I mean, right, like that's not possible when practice fields are typically not an accessible location. Usually they're like a big complex that's like 15, 20 minutes away from a lot of
Hmm.
people.
Yeah.
And when you're down the street at the middle school, it's like, okay, they go to the elementary school, the middle school is 0.4 miles away. He can ride his bike with his older brother. Like, is that a big deal? No, it's not, because their parents, like they're still working, whatever it is. One of the kids on our team, they don't have a car. So it's like, this just helps us make it to where they can get to the field and get to practice.
Okay. Yeah. 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 This way they're not. Let's say they can't make it to practice. The parents are working. They can still go because it's a walking distance, and
Yeah.
they're not just at home doing bad stuff or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Or hanging out at the park.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where a lot of the kids we find, I'm a recruiter also. A lot of the kids that I've stacked onto this pilot team to try out this concept. Frankly, I mean, I take my kids to the park all the time to different parks and I'll just see them be like, hey, is your parents around? Like talk to them. A lot of them don't speak English. So we do have folks on our board that speak other languages. And that's helpful because that's the other part of accessibility, like them not fully understanding what I'm saying. It's not good because a lot of times when I approach people, they're thinking, oh, is he trying to sell me something? Like, what is this guy trying to do? Like they
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
what is he talking about? Like the successful soccer thing? Like, what is he saying? So it's hard when there's that language barrier too. Even for people that I speak to in English and they understand English, when I sell the idea to them, it comes across as like, is he, what
Hmm.
is, it's kind of like a strange thing. I know travel soccer. What you're talking about is not travel soccer. It's some mysterious unicorn thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand completely because even myself, like I'm involved in it, and still seems like, oh, okay, let's a little interesting, you know. So I can completely understand from the parent side, you know.
Yep.
Can you share any success stories or standout achievements from what you accomplished or trying to
Yeah.
do?
I mean, we did our first, there's some milestones we set to say like this is to call this a success, right, for the pilot season. Because my whole thing going into this was, what, I finally want to make it a nonprofit and like formalize this thing. So
Mhm.
we got that approved at the end of December, basically around the holidays. And then we started full blown like practices and everything in January. Like right away, I started
This
recruiting.
this January.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. So you're
Yeah, so we
still
set up milestones, man. It's super early. So going into this, I was like, man, well, let's do it for 6 months. And then we hit the summertime. If we don't hit these milestones, I'm just gonna close up shop and say we did it, but it's not gonna work. There's a reason why these clubs are charging this much money because there's so many things I just didn't think about.
right,
Um,
right.
so some of those milestones, I call them achievements, because how we performed at the last tournament, I wouldn't call it an achievement. But again, you watch the kids, man, you're just like, from the first game to even the third game, like just the amount, because they're losing that thing. The thing that we don't get is them to play together often,
Mhm.
because we're to keep it accessible. I'm not doing league games. I'm only doing tournaments. So we go to tournaments very often, about once a month. Our next one is
Okay.
a day weekend. So I'm over optimizing for what I call the best return on investment, which is getting a kid to a tournament where they can be seen by multiple teams, multiple recruiters. The recruiters are not going to go to a league game. And if you
Okay.
think about every weekend, a kid needs to be taken to someplace 20, 30 minutes away to play for a 40-minute game to come back 30 minutes.
Mhm.
Is that the best return on investment? So that's really why I push towards, let's not do league games at all. Let's just go straight to tournaments. So that's what we do, is just do tournaments. But kind of going back, Eduardo, to those milestones. One of them was formalizing the nonprofit, which we got it. Another
Okay.
one was raising money to run the program entirely off the community, where I don't have to put personal money in, kind of thing. So that's another accomplishment. Going to a tournament, I never thought anyone would accept us and put us in a tournament. So
Okay.
that was a huge accomplishment. One of my milestones in there kind of was like to be competitive. I would say we were borderline. We got put in the second flight out of four. I asked for the middle one and they pushed us up. I was like, whatever. So the talent was good. But I mean, they didn't get shut out. Like those are big milestones, right? You just show up as a new team against teams that have been playing together for 2 years. They train 4 or 5 days a week. It's hard to just put those kids out there, right? You're kind of setting
Right.
them up for success.
Oh,
Uh,
right. Of
you
course.
set
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
up for failure, right? Um, so that was a milestone. Getting all the equipment, the uniforms, all that was kind of another milestone of like, how do we get that kind of funded and supported from local partners? And then the last one that we haven't accomplished yet, Eduardo, the one that's kind of most important to me is figuring out how to add these other teams. That's kind of where we're stuck now, is how do we do it in a sustainable manner? And we're not just
Okay.
taking kids that are disgruntled. What I want to avoid is kids, as they try out for other teams, they don't make the teams, and then they come to me and say, hey, we want to start a thing. It's like, no, no, hold on. We want to make sure we're getting kids that they don't even go to the tryouts because their parents already know we can't afford that. I don't, I'd love to accept you guys, but that's not the first place. I don't want people just coming and like, we're disgruntled with the other team and we're going to set up a team with you guys. So
Mhm.
I'm trying to find this franchise model idea of where folks can basically run their team within our guidelines, and they use our nonprofit to raise funds to cover anything. Like if they want to hire a private coach, they could do fundraising. Maybe there's a person on the team that's just like, hey, I'm used to paying $3,000 a month, or a year, sorry, for my kid. I don't mind donating that and help put it towards whatever it costs. Or I work at so and so company, and I think I can ask them. They're looking for community initiatives, like they'll probably sponsor whatever. So that's the last milestone that I have not achieved yet, is sustaining like another team.
Okay. You think you'll be able to do it here within the next couple months, or is that further way down?
It has to, so I don't, for thinking back, like I don't know if I would call it a failure if we don't do it in July. July is the time when I said we would do it by.
Okay.
The reason I picked July is because, as you know, the next teams are kind of formalized and then
Hmm.
they register for August.
Hmm.
And once you hit August, any of those kids, they're already like they're gone, you know? So then I'd have to go, I would have to go do a lot of legwork again to recruit kids that are basically being overlooked, which is fine. I don't mind recruiting and helping out, but I want to remove myself from the equation. You know, like how do I remove myself and automate some of these pieces to where it can just grow organically in a way that, you know, we can continue to do and sustain. So it's tough. July is kind of the hit time for that. I've been talking with folks that are interested, but it's like, you know, I need more commitment. That's the thing. I want to make sure we have someone like me that doesn't need this program and they don't mind giving up a little bit of their time. Because if you just bring a lot of the kids that need this, it's not going to take off. You know, you still need one person that says, you know what, I want to help this succeed. Like, I don't mind giving 2 hours, you know, every 3 days for whatever, you know.
Yeah, I know. So like, there's a lot of stuff. I know you say you don't do league games, right? How many tournaments is there? Because where I live, like, there's not a lot of tournaments, or there's one like every. I'm not sure if there's one every month, to be honest with you. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, we have. So we did one back. We missed one because I didn't have all the paperwork. I'm learning a lot of things, you know, with Got Sports and all these things.
Okay.
Because I'm honestly shouldering a lot of the work. So like some of these small things like administrative, you know, all the birth certificates, the player cards, all these things, like it's new. So we missed a tournament in March, but so we missed the March one, but we did one right here in April because of the location we live in. We live very close to Maryland. We're in
Oh, okay.
Virginia and we live next to DC. We're like 12 minutes from DC. So we have basically 3 states, you know, that we can kind of play with. And
Oh,
we can
okay.
find a lot of tournaments that are very local. So the Maryland one wasn't that local. That was an hour drive. But again, that's not terrible.
Hmm.
Like it wasn't like kids needed to fly or get hotels or anything. So that was the furthest. The next one we have over Memorial Day weekend is in Springfield, and that one is maybe like a 25-minute drive.
Okay.
And then we have one in August. So what I do is I went across and scraped. There's a couple websites that publish tournaments from different clubs. And I went and just took all those and put them in a big Excel sheet. And then I look at the distance from our location to these ones and the dates. And that's kind of how we've registered for tournaments. And it is roughly working out to once every 2 months max, once every
Hmm.
month is like kind of the sweet spot. But again, I was saying 6 tournaments. So if you figure every other month you're doing a tournament, and then during the winter time, you can do futsal or some other league. Like that's kind of the approach I'm taking. But again, we're just figuring this out as we go, you know?
Okay. So it's one every 2 months, right? Here and there.
Basically, it's working
Yes.
out once every 2 months, every six a year, basically.
Okay. So how do they just keep practicing in that time, or you guys have like 15 kids and they do 5v5, 8v8 or something like that?
Yeah, we do every practice. We have like a scrimmage because we have so many kids. That's what's nice about how having that many kids is I
Okay.
can put the kids up and be like, "Hey, go play!" Right? Like I'm not going to coach. Just I'll pause it sometimes, but just let them play. You know, because that's where they learn like those creative pieces of the game. Uh, so we do right now. We do 2 practices a week, and then we have this third practice that I'm going to have for everyone. It's just a strength and speed workout. A lot of the skills and things I picked up from football and just when I was playing, I leverage that and I bring it back for the kids where they come out and run stadiums. They do plyometrics, they do strength work, speed work, and some agilities. I'm trying to work in there too, some agility work. So that's kind of how we set up right now. So during that time where we're not in a tournament, that's the schedule that the kids have is the 2 practices of like soccer practices.
Hmm.
And then one is speed strength training. And then I'm hoping kids are doing other sports, but if they're not, 3 days a week is pretty good. Um, and what I hope is we build and have multiple teams in each year group is basically, so pretend I go back to the Gnarl, Carl, Sarl thing, right? The 3 teams. Pretend we have those 3 teams, all 2015 boys. We can set up ad hoc scrimmages for those teams in between each other. That way they can get some feel of the game. You know, I can ref, another person, a parent can ref, or maybe they just play like as a scrimmage. But that's what I'm hoping will help bridge the gap that we noticed at this last tournament of how do you replace the kids like not getting as much playing, right? Like actual competition playing, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a problem I have to overcome. And I think a way to do it is as we build out more teams, we basically have them scrimmage each other.
Okay. Do you ever scrimmage like other clubs nearby? Have you?
Not yet. I know
Okay.
a lot of the other clubs. I think that's another option is just like reaching out and being like, hey, no one has anything going on this weekend. I have a field. We have goals. You guys just want to meet up and scrimmage at 2 p.m. So I
Yeah.
think we can probably do some ad hoc stuff there too. Again, it's free. It's something that is a game for the kids, and you don't have to worry about all these other costs that come with that. Um, that is something else I've thought about. But again, right, it's just like trying to figure out what makes sense, trying it, and if it doesn't work, make sense, then we just move on to something else.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. It just like so because you say every 2 months, right? So let's say my son didn't make this tournament. He's got a chance for the next tournament, right?
Yep. Yeah,
That
you're talking about with the pilot team. So moving forward, I hope the teams will be smaller, but again, I don't want to turn kids away. We have had 3 kids leave the team, just like their parents recognize what's happening. They said, hey, our kid's just not good enough. They self-selected out.
oh wow,
They
okay.
can pay for other stuff, so they took him back to rec. So I mean, there is that aspect too of some parents are realizing, hey, this is competitive, and yeah, I don't want my kid to sit on the bench, you know, or not even be able to go to the game. So that's a negative that comes up of there is this negative, right? Of I
Mhm.
don't want kids to leave, but again, we recognize we're trying to give kids the opportunity to be seen, and if you're not in that competitive nature, they have recreation, they have other things, you know, like that's just where we're at right now. I don't have room to have like a bunch of different levels of teams. We're just
Mhm.
trying to put like very top tier talent teams out there. And so that's a negative. But yeah, we're not saying like, hey, Eduardo, since you haven't made the last tournament, you can't go to any tournaments this year. It's I every 2 weeks I publish a depth chart and kids move on the depth chart. You know, the depth chart is where you put like where the kids are at. Like,
Mhm.
hey,
Yeah,
you're a
kind of like the
starter.
ranking.
Yeah, it's like a ranking at the
Mhm.
at the different positions. So right now we do a 2-3-2 for our 2-3-1, I guess. Yeah, 2-3-1 for our 2015s. And so I put them like, hey, I think your best position, your best shot to be on the field is left wing, as an example,
Mhm.
and second string. So, you know, when we go through the numbers, it's like, okay, we can only take 10 for this tournament. You're number 10, so you're coming, you know? I wouldn't say if you're Eduardo's 11 and then next tournament, oh, he was 11 last time, so he can't come again. It's really comes down to commitment. So I'll give you an example. There's one kid that's pretty good, but he hasn't been able to come to practice in a while for whatever reason, right? So a kid that keeps coming to practice, putting in the work, committed, like they're passionate about it, that kid is going to move up and replace the other kid because what I don't want to have happen is show up to a tournament and this kid doesn't show up because they've been flaky, the parents haven't been able, whatever
Mhm.
it is, right? Like maybe they're not completely committed. I rather bring the kid that's been showing up, trying, maybe he's not as good, but he's in there, like he's passionate and he wants to learn and continue to grow. I'll put that kid on the field, you know?
Right, right, yeah. Um, the kid that shows up, he's just deserves to play compared to the kid that may not even show up.
Yeah, well, screw us. I mean, you know, because we cut the roster down and then that kid doesn't show up. It's like, man, maybe we don't have any subs or maybe we only have one sub, right? And like now the kids are dying at a tournament
Yeah.
because you know those games are back to back basically.
Oh, right, right, of course, yeah. And it always happens, that you try to like, man, this guy's good, but doesn't show up. I'll give him a chance, but it always happens. And how do you let the parents know, like, hey, this is not recreational, this is competitive. We're trying to belt, so they can understand completely.
It was tough to be honest, man. I mean, the first tournament was an eye opener for a lot of the parents, and you know,
Okay.
we lost 3 kids. All 3 were from the tournament. You know,
Oh wow.
uh,
Okay.
so I tried my best to communicate with them at practices. We have WhatsApp. You know, there is the language barrier with some of them, but again, there's something to be said of I keep telling you something, versus you see it with your own eyes. It's a completely different thing, right? Like someone can keep telling you, hey, this is how it works, this is how it works. And until you see how it works personally, then you're like, whoa, okay, hold on. Do we really sign up for this? Or, we want to do something else. And I mean, you go through some of these parents, it's like one of them was saying like, how come my kid isn't playing as much as everyone else? I'm like, hey man, we're trying to win, like it's competitive. If you want to play equal time, we have recreation. It's very cheap, and maybe you can get it for free probably because it's so cheap. Maybe you should take your son there if you're worried about playtime, or if you're concerned, we only practice 3 days a week. If you have time, maybe train. I can't train individual kids.
Mhm.
Practice, we're trying to focus basically on the team, right? Like, how do we get the team better? And those other days off, if you're not doing anything, like if you want to see him on the field more, this is what parents normally do. They normally either get like a private person or they take some time out of their day and they train the kid or they tell the kid to go practice more with other kids.
Okay.
So it was tough, man, to manage expectations. Um, I think we're in a better state now because now they went to the tournament and the
Okay.
parents and I saw a flip between how people are really thinking about this now versus how they probably were thinking about it before, of like a free ride. Hey, it's no commitment, it's free, we're just here, it's a great time, like this is a big community thing. Now they're realizing like, hey, it is a big community thing, but this is competitive. Like the competitive means it means something. It's not for fun and we're having, a big party. So it was honestly tough, man. But we finally, I think, leveled out to where we got the right kids. It also helped, to be honest, like not to spend too much time on this negative piece. 3 kids that did leave, those 3 kids could go pay for travel soccer.
Oh,
If they wanted
okay.
to. They're not hurting, like if they needed to, they can go and do other things. So we have replaced 2 of them already, with kids that I think, like you can tell the parents, as I start talking with the parents, you
Mm.
can tell like the ones that are like understand what's happening and like, dude, I'm very grateful for what you're doing because I understand what this is, versus the parents that just like, hey, this is cool. Like it's free, it's with his friends. That like, I like this. So we
Yeah.
kind of lost those kids that were like, hey, this is free, it's with his friends. And now we're continuing to gain kids. It's like, I didn't know this existed for my kid. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity that you're providing, and we really appreciate, like, how can we help? Like, I'll take
Right.
pictures, whatever, right? So yeah, man, that's where we're at right now. It's a balancing act, and I hope to remove myself from coaching because really I want to get to that strategic level and think about how do we grow this thing and move it forward by taking myself out of the weeds, because I don't want to be, I can't, if I'm just stuck in the weeds the whole time,
Mhm.
it's hard for me to come out and actually like move this nonprofit forward.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're looking down, you can't look somewhere else if you only focus on this one thing. Yep. No, I agree completely. So I know you mentioned that you have players from like 8 to 11, right? So how do you approach the talent identification? Because they're gonna be different levels. Do they all play? 8-year-old is not gonna play the same as an 11-year-old. So how does that work out?
Yeah. So all the kids we have right now are just 2015 for the soccer side. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, we don't mix those guys up. I have had some 2014 kids come out just to show them like their parents, like, hey, bring out your kid, I'll show you what we're doing,
Hmm.
if you want to stay in the loop. But yeah, no, I agree with you. The talent level is completely different. Even the 2014s, it's a big different with the 2015s. So I wouldn't mix those kids together per se. At the youth development event, we do mix those kids together because it's not as high stakes, right? But yeah, no, I would say the team would dictate how the training goes because, right, you want to make sure it's set for the lowest common denominator on the team. Otherwise, they're just going to continue to keep getting, bad. And there's only 2 or 3 that progress. And you're just focused on how do I make sure these 2 or 3 are like in the game all the time, working
Yep.
together. Everyone else just kick the ball forward. Play bad soccer, just play bad soccer. But yeah, man, that's so we haven't had to we haven't had to overcome that challenge yet because again, we just have that one pilot team. But I think yeah, as we grow, trying to figure out like the speed and strength thing. I'm trying to make that for all the teams whenever we do grow. And I
Okay.
think I would like to still run that personally, where I get a touch point still with the kids. I get to see how they're doing. and it's in a place where it's very individualized. Go sprint up the stadium. You don't really have to worry about is the kid 8 or 11 because everyone can sprint up the stadium. So there will be some things I'll have to change in the programming for the kids, maybe make 2 different slots. But I think there's more flexibility when you're dealing with kids doing strength and speed work versus like actual playing the game.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. But they're not so you play what, like U9 team? Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
yeah, it's U9 right now.
Mm-hmm.
The 2015 is U9 boys, and then it will switch to U10 in August.
In August. So you gotta look for more players, for like younger players, because I know you say you want to add more teams, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know where to find the kids, man. It's a matter of setting up another thing where I'm not doing everything. That's the problem where we're trying to figure out how do we bring someone else that's similar, that doesn't mind taking some of the work. We'll do all the administrative stuff for the team as a
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit. Like we'll handle all that, but we need someone to handle like the day-to-day operations, like the
Okay.
coaching, getting the teams together for practice, getting them to the tournament together. Like, can someone help handle that? I'll handle everything else. We'll have the player cards ready. We'll make sure they have uniforms, practice gear. Like we can do all that from the nonprofit side. I just need to find someone that could pick up basically another team and say, you know what, I'll run this team. I have maybe I have a son on the team, a daughter on the team, or, like I already coach, like I'll just charge you guys blah, blah, blah per hour, but I'll run that. So that's what I need to find next is really how do we find these people that will basically own that other team? And then I can help recruit. I know how to get the kids. It's just those kids, their parents wouldn't be able to do the kind of work I'm doing.
Okay. Now, with this other coach and team, would they be in your same area, or like a different, little bit south, 15 minutes away from you, or
Yeah, it would be completely decentralized. So the reason we picked the name 703 is the
Mhm.
area code. Instead of saying Arlington, it kind of scopes us down to just that county, right? If
Okay.
it's 703, now I can get someone that's 30, 40 minutes away that says, hey, I got a group of girls over here. Can you help me? I need like maybe 2 or 3. Let's recruit. But I already got a core team. We're just looking to come under your umbrella and use your name, use the nonprofit. We'll raise money. You can get the tax. We'll get the tax write-off to the company that supports us. So that's what I'm really looking for. And then I give them guidelines of what I expect, like a franchise. When you have like a McDonald's or something.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Hey, here's what I expect. This is what you should be doing. But if you guys want to practice 5 days a week, that's on you. Like you guys want to go to 10 tournaments, go ahead. Like I'm not going to say no. Like we just want to make sure we're giving these kids an opportunity to be seen. So how
Okay.
you think makes sense for you, do it. But you need to do these minimum things. Like you should be at least practicing twice a week. You should be doing 6 tournaments a year. Like that's kind of where I want to leave it at as like the nonprofit club. And then it's up to those teams to say, you know what, our girls, we get together 4 days a week. We do we have a private coach that comes in once a week that does this specialized training with each girl. Like you want to do all that, it's up to your team. You run the team however you want within our guidelines.
Oh, okay. I I understand it now completely. You, yeah, even if they're like 30 minutes away, they're still under your name, under your guidance, you know?
Yeah, we'll still do the admin stuff. The player cards, registering the kids, paying for registration with US Club Soccer, like doing all that stuff that's annoying that no one wants to do. We can still handle that. In exchange, though, we want you guys to go and perform at these places because you're using our brand, the name, all that stuff. Like that's what I'm hoping. And you run the program that makes sense for your family, your team.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I guess that's a little bit harder, isn't it? To like
We'll see. I mean, I don't know. I could, if we're already doing it, Eduardo, I could tell you more confidently,
yeah,
but we're not doing it yet. It's all like ideas and assumptions.
right, right. Well, hats off to you. Hopefully you do it. Um, I guess I know you may face a lot of challenges, but what challenges have you encounter as a director, as a coach? Because you're doing both right now.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge is doing a lot of things. We also do social media. So I'm pushing a lot, in terms of thinking about different revenue streams. It's like, how do we establish a foundation that in the future it could be another revenue stream or another way to raise awareness about what we're doing? or another way to highlight the kids that we have on the teams, right, and get their name out there. So like that's another piece that I'll have to say that I'm doing a lot of stuff, probably not well. So so it's like the biggest challenge is finding these other people that would want to own these things, right? Like, hey, I'll own
Mhm.
it. And then we get to a point, maybe we raise enough money. Now it's like, hey, we also can pay you as an employee. Like that would be ideal. But again, I didn't start this thing thinking about how do we make money. I started it trying to figure out how do we make it free for the kids.
Okay.
So we're coming from that angle. So that's why I've been having to do a lot of work, like even the website. Like I created the website from scratch. I use skills that I learned 10, 12 years ago and just I made the website, and I host
Okay.
it for free. We host it for free. I made it for free. I maintain it for free. Like these are all costs that normally are very expensive to do. But
Hmm.
again, it's just a splash page. It gets the job done. And that's kind of the approach we've been taking is what's the good enough approach. So yeah, going back to your thing about challenges, like how do we figure out to get like experts in these different spaces
Okay.
and get them driven to kind of do good things for us? And that's something that I just don't have an answer for. Like I don't know how we're going to solve it without just hiring people. Like not a lot of people do things for free. It is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like they got to make a living. I just blessed to have like a lot of folks that are helping now. They have other jobs, right? So they don't care. They're like, yeah, 1 hour, 2 hours here. Like I can jump on a board meeting. Like it's not a big deal. It's just beyond a board member though. You need folks that they don't mind giving, let's say, 10 hours a week, right? Like where do you find those people? I don't know if they exist or not. I'm assuming they probably don't exist. So now it's thinking like, how do you raise enough money to be in a place where you're not just burning through the cash, but you're sustaining this program where we can hire a private coach to run another team, and then I can just go get the kids. I know where to get the kids. The problem is getting someone to actually run that team.
Okay.
So those are big challenges that we're facing as we try to scale out to accomplish that last milestone that I flagged earlier of like having multiple teams. We can't have multiple teams if we don't have another coach that's there that says, you know what, I'll own this. I'll run this
Hmm.
team. You just kind of do all the administrative stuff for me. And I'll ask you if I have any questions or concerns or I need help with something. Otherwise, like I got it. I know what to do. Like that's my bread and butter.
Okay. Yeah. I guess the hardest part is finding people that are committed, you know, to doing this. And like you say, it was free, so it's gonna be
Yeah.
hard, a little bit difficult. But yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, dude, the free thing is very tough. I mean, I've had parents come up to me and say, why don't you charge? Because then like even if you charge them something low, like $10 as an example,
Hmm.
like they'll feel like there's some psychology behind
Yeah.
charging, even if it's $10, $20, whatever,
Hmm.
it's not 3,000. Um, like I've thought about it, but again, I'm like, well, I don't care. The whole vision I have for this is like rich or poor, white, black, whatever, the best kids are on the field. Like I don't give a damn how it happens. That's what I want to make sure. The best kids are on the field, they're shining, and if they can afford it, now they can find their passion. If they can't afford it, now they can be seen by these other clubs and they can
Okay.
continue their career in soccer. Like if that's what they want to do, that's where I say, okay, we shake hands. Now, good luck. We helped you out until age 11. Now go out and do good things at this other club. Don't forget about us though. But like that's my whole vision. So I don't want to add any of these blockers that would kind of push people away, even though it's $20. Like I've been able to every time we get something, like a lot of the families still will donate just like, oh, here's $20. Like it's not a big deal. So that's kind of where I'm like, well, they are kind of still committing because they are donating whenever we do something. Like I'll tell them, hey, this tournament, it costs $800. The nonprofit is paying for it. But if you can, feel free to donate, but it doesn't impact the depth chart. Like I don't want to use money to make politics either.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Who's it harder to? Let me see. How do I say it? Because I know you said there's no commitment, right? But there's still commitment. So how do you manage that, especially
Yeah.
with the parent side?
Yeah, I mean, even with the kids, right? Like, well, how we're doing it is the depth chart, I think keeps people honest because I've moved kids down that were starters. It's like, hey, if you're not coming out, like, I can't put you as a starter.
Hmm.
This kid comes out every day. I mean, there's one kid that rides with us to practice. Um, I mean, I don't care. Like if they want to be there, I'll help them out, you know? So it's like trying to find these ways to, you find the kids that are committed, like they're going to move up, you know, even if they're not as good as the other one right now, but them getting in those extra touches, those extra practices over time, they're going to be better. So like that's one piece of it. To manage that commitment thing. It's like, oh, if you don't show up, you're not playing. You know, that's one thing that kind of
Okay.
introduced, right? Like that helps with the commitment issue. The other one that I've seen that's kind of bubbling up in the background is I've noticed some of our players, I got to talk to some of the parents, but like they've been going and trying out for teams now, thinking like, oh, my kid's ready for the big time
Oh wow.
thing.
Okay.
So this is another issue that just came up actually this morning from one of our games. And I don't want that either. It's like, because that's a commitment issue, right? Like,
Mhm.
and one of our board members, he's now in Arlington travel soccer. He just got hired over here.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so there's some conflict there, but it's not, he really wants to help. He's not trying to like, screw us over or anything. But like it's these little small things that it kind of goes against that commitment thing that we're having. And I think it's shaking itself out, but I never know. Like there's new things that always pop up. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, how do I talk? Now I got to talk with the parents to figure out like how do we make them feel more like they're kind of not locked in, but like, hey, you're taking up a person's spot. Like, how do I phrase it in a way where it's like, hey, you understand that your kid is taking up a spot. If you're not fully bought into this idea, I need to go back and I'll go recruit. I'll go get more kids. Like I know where to get the kids. But those kids, I'm not looking for them anymore because we already have 15 kids. Like I don't want to get more kids. But if you're not committed, let me know. I'll go get the other kid and there's no strings attached. You'll feel free to leave the team or go play with a big club or whatever. So that's something that I think I'm gonna start having a big issue with, is now
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
kids
For
are
sure.
leaving very early. It's like, man, you've only been with us for a little bit, but now like you're all trained up and now you're ready to go to the big club. So that's a problem that I think is going to continue to become an issue as we
Hmm.
go to these tournaments and other clubs see these players. I think it's going to be a problem where people are going to start poaching my kids. They're going to be like, hey, let me talk to basically what I did, like, hey, let me talk
Yep.
to your family. Hey, oh, by the way, this program normally costs $3,000, but hey, we work with you. Like whatever you can pay, we got you. Like come with the big kids. Over there, they're just a bunch of that's your friends and stuff. Like your son, he could be something. Like we get him through college. They'll start
Hmm.
promising stupid
Yeah.
things. And how do I fight that? Like I don't know how we're gonna fight that challenge when we get there. It's a good challenge to have because then you're doing something really good. You're bringing in the right talent, or you're giving these kids a chance, which is what I'm trying to do. But then it's like if you lose these kids early, it kind of hurts the brand.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely
So,
agree. Yeah. My excuse me. Where I coach is similar to what you do. It's not as structured probably as you. Uh, so yeah, so we have the same problem. That's what I was asking. Because like in my team, one of the players like mid-season, he just picked up and left because another club was offering him something better than what we were offering him.
yeah.
So that's why my question is to you, like, how do you do it with no commitment but still commitment? You know?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, man. I mean, I don't know if you'll ever be able to fix that problem of a parent just taking their kid to another team.
Hmm.
Um, it's just annoying, especially because there's no strings attached, right? So they can come over and be like, "Hey, I'm just gonna do this free training, get my kid up to speed, and then we'll go at that tournament. I see we're playing that team that, like that didn't take my son before, but now if my son goes out there, scores 2 goals, I'm gonna, basically
Yeah,
they're
he's
gonna
gonna be
come
ready.
over.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, when we said he wasn't on the team before, no, he's on the team. Like that's a problem we're definitely gonna face. But I know there's a lot of kids in this area where I can get more kids. It's just you're losing that continuity though, right? Of like these kids get used to playing with each other, and then if they keep leaving, it's like, is your thing just more of a transient program of kids come here for a little bit and then they go
Hmm.
to bigger, better things? Maybe that's what we become. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty flexible to figure out like how do we best do this thing? But it would be tough, I think, if kids were just coming for 6 months, like you had your kid come for
Hmm.
a season, and then now they leave to another club. It's like, dude, like, how are we gonna replace your kid? Because now they took up a spot for 6 months. We could have been training this other kid for six
Yep.
months and now been like in full swing, with the team. Uh, So I'm gonna have to create some type of like loose contract. I don't know what we're gonna have to do, but I don't want to introduce a bunch of structure and like barriers because then it goes against what we're doing also. It's like
Okay.
you find the happy medium of adding some things of like, hey, that when your kid gets this uniform, you're committing to blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're not going to charge you if you leave, but at least this is like a handshake, like handshake, at least promise us this season or whatever. And then if
Yeah.
you leave, like we understand, thanks so much. No hard feelings, but like try to make it so it's more transparent and the parents know what they're getting into. I have to figure that out. I haven't solved that.
Yeah, it's a complicated situation, I guess. You want to give them a chance, but at the same time, you don't want to get taken advantage, I guess, in a way. I
Yeah.
remember in Florida when I used to coach in Florida, they used to make them sign like a contract, like a season-long contract, where they can't go mid-season, they can't go to a different club. Not until after the tournament, the season was over, then they could go. But I don't know, maybe that's a option later on or something.
Yeah, I thought about it at the last tournament we did actually.
Yeah.
There was a kid that the family said they were going to come and they didn't come. And I thought about it as, hey, maybe if we frame it in a way of you're not stealing, but you're taking from the nonprofit, right? Because the nonprofit's paying for your kid to be there. You said you're going to be there. You
Hmm.
did a no-show, right? Like you didn't show up. How do we basically recoup or repay the nonprofit that paid for your son to be there? So
Okay.
maybe I can move that idea to something like you mentioned with a contract of, hey,
Hmm.
recognize per season, the nonprofit is paying X thousand dollars for your kid.
Hmm.
Leave whenever you want, but it's the understanding that you would reimburse because you don't want to steal from the nonprofit. No one wants to steal from the nonprofit.
Yeah,
You're
of course.
taking
Yeah.
$80 and you recognize you would be expected to pay roughly blah blah blah. Maybe there's something in there, but it gets very legal and the
Yeah.
legal
Yeah. Yeah.
and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I said, it's a complicated situation to be in, and I don't know. Coach Aneez, we're gonna start wrapping it down because I know we've been here for an hour, and I know we could keep going, but I know you
Yeah.
have other stuff to do, so I'm gonna let you go. So looking ahead, what are your goals and aspiration for the future of the club?
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Eduardo. Yeah, the goal is it comes down to that last challenge I have, like the big one, like
Hmm.
having multiple teams. If I can have that, then I can prove this whole model, this whole idea works. If I
Okay.
don't have that, it's gonna be kind of hard for me to say that this thing works. It's only working because it's working on my back type thing.
Okay.
Like if if that's the only way it works, it's not scalable.
Yeah. Hmm.
So that's really the goal. The goal is really around that on the soccer side. And on the youth development side, the goals is to continue to increase the amount of participation that we have. We're hoping to get to a point where we do 300 kids in the whole year.
Oh
That
wow. Okay.
that's our goal for the youth development side is really reaching out between those 6 events and saying over those 6 events this year, we've mentored and trained 300 plus kids that are
Okay.
coming that are ages 6 to 11 is what we target for the youth development events K through 5. That's the goal on that side is to bring in more numbers and really broaden our impact for the community.
Gotcha. Okay. So what do you think? What's next for you?
Yeah. Hopefully what's next for me is I can abstract myself from this team that we
Yeah.
started and start growing out these other components. I'd never want to be a paid person for this thing. So I'm fine with being a volunteer, but I do recognize it's like we do probably need someone like a chief of staff or someone that's kind of
Hmm.
running this thing forward in the operations side because I can't do everything. I'm the single point of failure. And something, God forbid happens to me, the whole thing is nothing.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of fallbacks. I do document everything very well and share with our board, but I couldn't see anyone else picking this up if I decided to step away, if I died, like something happened to me, or
Yeah.
I got injured to a place where I can't do anything anymore. Like that's the problem that I'm currently faced with is figuring out how do I remove myself from the operations and get it to a place where this thing is like a well-oiled machine. It's not going to be perfect, but at least it's moving, right? It's moving, and I'm not the only person that's making it rowing. I'm not the only person rowing the boat. There's other
Yeah.
people in helping.
Yeah. 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 Like you said, like you mentioned before, if you're only there, it's not scalable. and
Yeah.
unfortunate somebody has to be there helping you out as well. Yeah, it's a tough, but I know you could do it. It seems like you know what you're doing. Yeah, you have everything very structured. You know, so hopefully you do it, and hopefully we come back in a year and you're doing a lot better than now. Have more teams.
That would be huge, man. If we just get, I said 3 teams. We had 3 teams. I think it's enough to get the name out there. We go to these tournaments. There's going to be people coming up to us and be like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? What's this? What's going on here?" Like that. That's going to be very helpful to raise awareness at these different locations. And then the youth development side, it also helps us raise awareness in the community of, "Hey, I didn't know this thing existed for my daughter. Like, this is great. She just plays rec right now, but." I mean, she's really good, but she doesn't have an opportunity to play at a higher level.
Right.
But yeah, man, we'll see. Hopefully we talk in a year and it's still working and we're moving forward with the 3 teams or more. And now we're like a full-blown club and we're
Yeah.
still operating with that same mission of, making it completely accessible for the families to bring their kids, let them be seen by these top tier teams, and then continue to move on their soccer journey, or find a way of, hey, soccer wasn't really it. Karate is that's my my passion, or
Okay.
wrestling, you know.
Yeah. So what advice would you give somebody that's starting out, trying to do something like this? What advice would you give them?
I would say, like, just from the nonprofit perspective, I wish there was someone else doing this, but if someone is trying to do something similar to me, I've been pushing partnerships. Like, why start this whole thing by yourself? Why not just partner with someone else? You know,
Okay.
like that would be something. Like, I was researching when I started. I couldn't find anyone trying to do the same thing. A lot of people say they do accessible soccer, but you
Yeah.
look underneath, they're not doing accessible soccer. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? There's definitely a need for this, but I'm at a point where I'm open to working with partners. So if someone was like, dude, I want to start a club that's very similar to yours, there's a couple wrinkles that are different. Like, I'm more interested to coming to the table with someone else and partnering, maybe meeting halfway. Maybe it morphs a little bit what I was thinking, but the whole point is to get to that ripple effect. Like, I rather serve more kids than do it myself and only serve a small population. Like,
Mm.
and I want to be able to say, like, man, we're service. We have like multiple teams. We're sending 2 or 3 kids every season or every year to this big, this academy team, and this is huge. Like, that's where I want to be. And if it means partnering with another guy that's like, dude, I got a good idea. What if we take it this way? Like, I rather do that and work with that person versus them like, hey, I'm just gonna do it my own way, because, dude, it's a lot of work. I spent so much time. I started this thing maybe like a year ago, like, in terms of like thinking about how it could
Hmm.
work, talk with parents. It's not like I just came up, submitted a form to the government and then like, hey, you got a nonprofit. There's way more that goes into this thing, right? Like,
Right. Right.
so I would tell that person, just going back to the advice, is like, just look for someone that's doing something similar and then see how you can work together, as opposed to just trying to do it all on your own. Because, dude, it was a lot of work. I've been just blessed to have like the time and flexibility, but it's
Yeah.
not everyone has that. And if we can find 2, 3, 4 people that all have the same vision, we can do a lot of things, like very special things for the kids.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. I forgot my question I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
um, I forgot my question that I was gonna ask.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, we were talking about some advice for someone that was going to start, their own thing or something. Um, I don't know if that helps jog
Yeah,
back.
actually did. So you said you would be willing to help somebody out just within your own state, your area, or somebody else, let's say from Ohio, wants to do like, hey, Coach Aneez, I want to do this. Would you help me out?
Yeah, man. So as I've thought about these other places, like, how I mentioned, hey, there's a team 45 minutes away, whatever.
Hmm.
Like, I don't care, is decentralized. I've also thought of the idea of these different umbrellas. So I've seen this with big clubs where they have different regions with the same, like surf as an example, right? Like San Diego surf and whatever, Las Vegas surf, whatever the other locations are. I've thought of where okay, you have 703 Warriors. Maybe there's another zip code, or sorry, another area code in Ohio. And they're like, oh, we're 558, whatever their zip code is.
Okay.
You get underneath the umbrella, you have this 703 Warriors, the parent, you have 558 Warriors, 210 Warriors, and they run, and you have these subsidiary like nonprofit clubs that basically are local to
So
wherever,
their area, yeah.
yeah, so that's I have thought about that too. But again, man, those are like things that are so far out there that I'm like, if it makes sense and someone comes to me, it's like, hey, I want to do the same thing in Ohio. Like I wouldn't turn it down. There would probably be some like legal things I probably have to do. um,
Okay.
but like I wouldn't initially like if someone reached out, I would try to figure out how we can do it versus just saying, hey, that's probably gonna be a lot of work. Like here, I can share some things that I did, but like good luck.
Mhm.
I would be open to it to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, so you're willing to work with them as long as you would have to analyze it first, make sure it's a good way to work it out, I guess, kind of.
Yeah, man, because you look at nonprofits, I mean, like not all of them are just stuck to a state. Like they have nonprofits that span the United States or the world, right?
Oh, okay.
So this could be a similar thing where the nonprofit is no longer just it's based in Virginia and Arlington, but it has a reach.
You can expand it somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's why I thought like this could make sense, but I haven't delved into the weeds because it hasn't been a thing that's come up because I'm
Right.
so focused on like the current operations. I can't like look further right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I mean you're still kind of young in all this project. You're doing great, but it's still young, you know. You just started this year, at the beginning of this year, January. So yeah, you still got a lot of steps to go through before you yeah, yeah, yeah. Where can listeners learn more about you or Coach Aneez?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, me personally, you can go on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest, or just type in Aneez Merzi. But then, obviously, what makes more sense or is more important, I think, for people to learn about us is really the 703 Warriors. Like, if you go to 703warriors.com, we're also pushing YouTube. We're
Okay.
making videos. I'm trying to get some interns or really some help to push more social media content.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we've been doing decent on some of our shorts too. So I'm like, okay, there's something there where we tell the story of some of these kids. Like there's a lot of opportunity on the YouTube side. And then you have Instagram and some other things. But yeah, we're basically on all social media except for like the other like TikTok and whatever else people are using. It's mainly the main ones like Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And it's all very, very early on things, but I'd say we spend most of our time on Facebook and YouTube.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put it on the show notes so everybody can have it there. You know, it's 703 Warriors. I did see some of your drills. I like some of your drills that you were doing though. I'm actually gonna use them for my team because I like them for shooting.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I wish I could record more, but I'm trying to coach too. So I'm like,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, oh, I should probably record this thing. A lot of them, unfortunately, a lot of the times it's at the end of the practice and we're doing penalty kicks. So a lot of times we've just been doing that. But that's why I'm trying to find like this intern because I think we're putting out a lot of good content, but we're not capturing the content, you know?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's why I've been even looking up cameras to wear or something stupid. Like, I don't know, just so we can capture the stuff and then we can always edit it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I want to make like the whole story, like to bring this whole thing of like these kids and elevate them. Like we've had older kids come up to us and like, hey, how do I get on your YouTube videos? Or like, when are you guys going to start an 11-year-old team? Because I want to be on YouTube. It's so funny. Like, I want to be on YouTube. It's like, oh, you don't want to just play something. So it's funny, like some of these kids, even the kids on the team, they'll be like, "Oh man, how come I wasn't in there? How come I didn't make the video? Like my kick was good this week, whatever it was."
Yeah.
It's funny, like balancing that with them. But I think if we had a person, again, going back to like just dedicated or like they're just doing that part, man, we could get some good drills in there. Like I have a bunch of good ideas that I can pull from football, like American football and then the stuff I learned playing soccer all the way up to I played all the way up to high school. I actually played in high school for my first year, and
Okay.
then the football coach he came over. He's like, "Hey man, I'm pretty big. I'm a pretty big guy." He's like, "Hey, what sport are you here for?" Kind of thing. I was like, "Oh, I'm here for the soccer physical." He's like, "No, no, no. You come here. You're over at football." uh, and then I played football and then I couldn't go back. I put on like 20, 25 pounds. And it was just like, football's a different, American football is a different
Hmm.
sport.
Yeah.
And so I never was able to go back to soccer, which I mean, football got me through college and everything. But like my passion deep down has always been soccer, like playing
Okay.
soccer.
Yeah.
I still play, like I set up a meetup group with some adults in the area, and I host that on Sundays. And we just come out, it's like pickup games. So like I
Okay.
still playing, man. It's just like I was just built for football, American football though.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. You have so much passion for the game. That's great. That's what we need. More people that are passionate about the game.
Yeah, sweet. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, let me know if there's anything else I could support. I really appreciate it, man. Like all these things, these little connections and stuff, that's what's honestly been helping us grow and thrive.
Right.
Just working with other partners.
Okay. I just have one last question. It's not a silly question. Okay. If you could have any celebrity on your team, who would it be and why?
Oof. Celebrity's tough. I'm gonna go a different direction with this. I'm
Okay.
afraid we don't want like a prima donna, like, oh, this is the best player and everyone bows down to that player. I
Okay.
like to build teams where collectively they're really good. Individually, maybe they have some flaws, but collectively they work together to figure out, hey, I compliment this person that's really good on defense, can give me the ball out to the outlet. I can take it down and cross it. So that would be my only caution with giving you like like a professional player or a celebrity, because
Okay.
I don't make it about a person. Like the whole reason I started this thing was to make it about the community.
Hmm.
Like I didn't want just one person to be highlighted. You want to be like that, maybe you need to go to like a big club. But I mean, it'd be great. What's his name's been trending lately? Lloyd Johnson on the he's an English player.
Okay.
You see Johnson? Yeah, I mean, he's pretty good, man. I mean, but like again, going back to would you want someone like that on the team? It would be great for, wins. But like we're definitely want to win. It's just I want to look beyond just like that, especially
Just
due to
winning.
this life skills and all this stuff. It's like winning is definitely really important. And I think you need to win at everything in life. But it's a point of there's something to learn when it's like you don't just rely on one person on the field.
Yeah.
It's like, hey,
Hmm.
collectively the team is getting better and working together to get this, to accomplish these victories. I rather see that than just relying on, hey, just kick the ball over the top, send Eduardo, and he'll figure it out, dude. Yeah,
Oh yeah, for sure. And at the end of the day, that's developing the players. That's where everybody grows, where everybody's playing, not just the one guy. You know.
yeah. But that's my long answer to your celebrity thing.
All right. Well, thank you, Coach Aneez. Thank you for coming on this podcast from the field, Voices of Football. Thank you for being here.
No, thanks so much, man. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and I really appreciate it. Feel free again. Don't be a stranger. Hit me up if there's anything like I can be supportive with all the stuff you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Uh, Hopefully we'll have you back within a year or a couple months. See how you're doing. Hopefully you're doing better, adding more teams to your club. All right.
No, thanks so much, man. Take
All
care.
right. Yep. Thank you. Bye.